Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. I am here with a new video that combines rainbow stamping and rainbow pattern paper and 3 different card samples and ways to do that. So let's take a look at some of the products that I'm using. I have some Doodlebug pattern paper and I have a Simon Says stamp set that is the Thanks stamp set. I also have some dye inks that I pulled that match the pattern paper. They are a combination of Hero Arts and Simon Says stamp inks, and I'll have everything linked down below. I'm going to use my Misty for this rainbow stamping. I'm going to stamp the sentiment thanks in a rainbow of colors, and so it's really easy to use the Misty for this or a other stamp positioner because you can slide the cardstock up a certain number of grid squares and you'll be sure to line up that sentiment up and down the card. So you can see that I am basically cleaning off the stamp, keeping the stamp on the door each time, and just moving that cardstock panel up 4 squares. And that's going to give me a nice line of thanks stamps in a rainbow of colors. I should have started a little bit lower. I didn't do that. And so I had to reposition the stamp for that last stamp there for the blue. I'm going to cut this panel down closer to about 4 by 5 1/4, and I have a strip of pattern paper that is also 5 1/4 long. It's about a little over an inch, and this is my rainbow pattern paper that matches that stamping because I pulled all my inks to go with those colors in that pattern paper. And I'm going to mount this all on top of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. This is a teal cardstock by Gina K Designs. It's one of her new colors for the summer of 2018. I really like it a lot. I've been using it a ton. Next, I'm going to grab my Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal Drops to add some dimension and shine to some of that pattern paper. It's another way to go with the colors in the pattern paper is to pull some either embellishments or inks or dimensional adhesive like this that matches or coordinates with those colors. This way you're getting that pop of dimension and shine and continuing with your rainbow pattern there. So I'm just basically putting some dots in the larger flowers here. And then for the leaves, I'm just going to draw some little lines up the middle of the leaf, just kind of like a vein of a leaf. And you can barely see that, but in real life, you can tell that they have nice dimension and texture to them as well. I decided I wanted to bring those dots to the stamping side of the card because it was looking a little too plain. So I'm just going to put a few dots of each color around each stamped image, just trying to make it organic, and that completes that card. So the next way that I like to use rainbow stamping and rainbow pattern paper is, again, I'm using a piece of Doodlebug pattern paper, and I've cut a thin strip. It's about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more, of a 12 by 12 sheet of pattern paper. And then I cut that down to about 5 1/2 tall, and I'm just going to put those 2 strips on the left hand side of my card panel. I'm going to use that same Simon Says stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that thanks in Simon Says Stamp Extreme Black ink, and I have a sub-sentiment that I am stamping in that same ink as well, and I'm using my Misty to make sure that I get a good impression, which I did, no problem. Next, I'm going to grab another Simon Says stamp set, and this is a hearts stamp set. It has a bunch of outline hearts and filled in hearts of different sizes. So I'm going to take one of 5 different sizes of hearts, starting with the very tiniest ones and moving my way up. I'm going to stamp them in each of those colors that I had pulled in those inks. And I'm going to again grab the Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal Drops to again add some dots. It's like using little enamel dots around those stamped hearts. So we're combining again those pattern papers on the left hand side with some stamping and a few Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal Drops to really again add some dimension and shine. And I love the way that those Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal Drops really spread out enough to make them look like those enamel dots, so not super high dimension, just enough. Okay, the last way that I'm going to use the pattern paper with rainbow stamping is to start with a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card panel. I've cut a piece of cardstock, a piece of rainbow pattern paper that is about 3 inches by 4 1/4. And I have a little strip that's coordinating with that. And I know it's coordinating because it's the flip side of that pattern paper. So I'm just going to use that little strip, kind of like a piece of trim. And the way that I'm going to do the rainbow stamping for this one is I have another Simon Says stamp set. This one has kind of ink swatches, and I'm going to use one of the large ink swatches, and I'm going to use, instead of the large ink pads, I'm going to use cubes so that I can just ink up parts of that ink swatch at a time. And I'm going to continue to do that with all these colors so that it looks like this paint swatch is actually a rainbow swipe of paint. And so I'm just softening some of the lines by rubbing away either with my finger or an ink blending tool to make it nice and smooth and no harsh lines. Now I'm going to use VersaFine Black Onyx ink, which I chose because it is a pigment ink, so it will sit on top of all the dye inks that we already stamped. I'm going to stamp it twice just to make sure it's a nice thick impression and it will stand out above that rainbow paint swipe. So that is 3 different ways to use rainbow stamping and combine it with rainbow pattern paper. I hope you got some inspiration out of this and you'll look to your rainbow pattern papers and your stamps next time you're making some cards. If you're interested in the supplies I use, they'll all be linked down below. You can subscribe to my channel here, check out my blog for more information, and I'll have a few other videos you might be interested in. I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. Have a wonderful day.